Major League Baseball and its fans are at odds with each other once again over this year's Hall of Fame voting. It seems like every single year at this time, fans and the league are not able to come to an agreement on what the acceptable criteria should be to get players into the Hall of Fame. Currently, you need 75% of the 400 votes that come in from baseball writers across America. Now, some people think that's a little bit too high. It should be a little lower. Me, on the other hand, and other people think that it should be more of an elite club. You got to have an unequivocally great career to make it to the Hall of Fame. That's how it should be. The issue is, and why this year was a little bit different, not a single player on the ballot made it into the Hall of Fame this year. And there are a lot of players on that ballot that had that great career, that Hall of Fame career, that should be in the Hall of Fame at some point. But a lot of players on that list are running out of time. And most of the players that I'm referring to are from the steroid era. Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Manny Ramirez, Sammy Sosa, Gary Sheffield, all weren't able to make it in once again. And they're either admitted or suspected steroid users. A lot of baseball writers are dropping out of their vote because they don't agree with the system that's in place. There's a clause in their contracts that say that they have to take into consideration the character of the player while administering their votes. And using steroids obviously is a blemish on one's character. But there's a little bit of a double standard, and a lot of baseball writers are upset with this double standard because there are a lot of people with character issues in the Hall of Fame already. Racists, drunks, drug abusers, domestic violence abusers, all able to get their plaques. These guys with the steroids, not able to get their plaques yet, and probably not ever, if you think about it. So, there's a lot of writers like ESPN's Buster Olney who have dropped out of the voting, who've given up their vote. He did it in 2015. He's a very respected, very well-known baseball reporter for the worldwide leader in sports. So that's a big deal. And there's a lot of people that respect the game of baseball and love the game of baseball, like myself, that also don't really agree with it too. Because these guys, I'm talking about Bonds, Clemens, Sosa, McGwire, defined an era of baseball. It was really exciting. And they have some records in the record books, like Barry Bonds is the all-time leader in home runs. He's not in the Hall of Fame. Do I agree with using steroids? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's a performance enhancer and it's cheating. But should these guys be held out of the Hall of Fame for it? At this point, no. I feel like they've had to wait. They've gotten their punishment. They've gotten their public ridicule for it. But these guys deserve their plaques. Their jerseys deserve to be in the Hall of Fame and recognized by baseball fans and players for eternity. I mean, you can't just erase what these guys did and the impact they had on the game. I mean, it seemed to be totally fine with the MLB when they were bringing up the ratings, when McGwire and Sosa were having those home run races at the end of the season, and the ratings were through the roof for baseball in ways that they hadn't been since the 70s. It was okay then. But after their careers were over and it was found out what they were doing behind the scenes, it tarnished it a little bit. And I have to say, as a baseball fan, I looked at them a little bit differently. But they still did what they did. They still put the bat on the ball. They still made some exciting games and some exciting pennant races at the end of the season for all of us to enjoy. And, this brings me to my next point, which is about what the Baseball Hall of Fame should be. It shouldn't be this ultra exclusive club that just bases it on who you are as a person necessarily. Your on the field play should matter a lot, and it should have a bit more weight than what you did as far as taking steroids. It should be a celebration of the game of baseball and the history of baseball. one day if I take my kids to the Baseball Hall of Fame, I want to be able to tell them who these guys were and show them, their plaques and say that these guys were awesome, but they did do something bad. That should be on the onus should be on the fan to be like, okay, they had a great career. They deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, but what they did was unethical, right? And they, at the very least, if they don't get their plaques, they should be allowed to have some sort of a shrine, some sort of a display that baseball fans can go and enjoy and reflect on what they did in their careers, because they were baseball. These guys were the game of baseball for a decade. Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa crushing home runs, setting a new standard for what great hitting is. And Roger Clemens throwing gas and playing on championship teams. It was all awesome and it was great while it was happening. But baseball wanted to get away from the steroids so bad that they're punishing them for way, way too long. And, it brings back the old Pete Rose question. I completely disagree that Pete Rose is not in the Hall of Fame. He should be in the Hall of Fame for sure. You can't have the all-time hits leader not in the Hall of Fame. You can't. You can't have that. I mean, what am I supposed to, I wasn't able to watch him play. The only reason I knew who he was because of the scandal and my father telling me who this guy was and how great he was. Charlie Hustle, you have to play like him. And he deserves a spot in the Hall of Fame too. I don't know what the solution is per se. Maybe we could have, different writers rotated every few years so we get fresh eyes on the ballots. Younger people, maybe. I don't know if that would do anything. But there needs to be a solution because baseball fans are not happy about it, and they're not gonna come around to it. It's gonna keep happening every single year. There's gonna be a discussion about baseball and its old values and its old, ways. It's not moving forward. It's not exciting for the kids. It's not, it's not 1970 anymore. There has to be something done about this. And I don't see it happening anytime soon, unfortunately. After the break, we will be taking a look at Tom Brady's 7th Super Bowl championship. The GOAT has done it again.